Yes.
Morning, everybody. I think it's around 9:30, so time to kick off. Firstly, let me welcome you to today's meeting of the 28th of August, and I'll start with an opening karakia. Pakataka te hau ki te uru, pakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia makina kina ki uta, kia mātaratara ki tai, e hi aki ana ti atakura, e tio, e huka, e huho, ti hei moriora. Right, do we have any apologies?
Councillor McCrosty for lateness.
Not a member of the committee.
So did I hear Councillor Payne as well? No. So no apologies. Declaration of interest in any of the items from any councillors? There are none. I haven't been advised of any urgent business. Public forum, we have one speaker in public forum, Mr. Barrett. Do you want to come forward and speak now, Phil?
Yes, good morning, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to just quickly ask a couple of questions here this morning. I was here a couple of weeks ago and I was asking about the pool, the price for the Milton pool, $19.4 million budget needs to be sort of aligned with some sort of building or some sort of plan, and as yet we haven't seen those numbers. I was just looking last night. And going through the live streams of the last meeting here, the 12th of June, and there was a lady stood right where I am and gave some sort of report about some numbers that had turned up, but they weren't disclosed at the meeting. And there was going to be a report here in mid-July with the numbers that we need to take to the community. It's now the end of August and that hasn't happened. I'm just wondering, is there any way of actually speeding that up? Because there's a lot of concern out in the community that a new council will come in here after the election And the pool committee will end up coming through the door wanting money for things that aren't in the budget perhaps. And that's all I've got to say, and I thank you for the time.
Thank you very much. Just note that, so you're comfortable with the budget numbers, the status of the project, as I understand it. Staff are currently having a look through the tender response at this stage, and that will be recorded in due course. Is that correct, Steve?
Not quite, Mr. Chairman. The item is on the agenda, and the matter will be spoken to on the agenda item.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? No, so later this morning.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Right, item number 1 on page 9, the minutes from our last meeting, and we'll just do a page turn. Page.
Try and correct the chair.
Do we have a seconder?
Just
Councillor
apologies for
Graham.
lateness.
Noted. So moved, Mayor Cadogan, seconded Councillor Graham. Recommendation on page 9, and we'll just look at those before we vote. So page 10, page 11. Just confirm the auditors, Sharon, are starting next week. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, no, they started this Monday, 25th. They're not on site this week, but they have. Yes.
One of the things that we'll be contacting the auditors with to get the assurance that we will have work plan meetings every day, so that we don't get to the end of this process and it's our staff weren't available or documentation wasn't available. We are reserving the right to ask for that in advance, so we know exactly where we are with our own planning. And of course, we're scheduled to adopt the annual report, both through the Risk and Assurance Committee and full council on Thursday, the 9th of October. At this stage, we have no reason to believe that won't be the case. Page 12, 13, page 14, and page 15, pages 16 and 17, yell out if there's anything in there. 18 and 19, 20 and 21, and finally page 22. So we have a mover and a seconder. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Items 2 and 3 I intend to take concurrently, given obviously the crossover theme that there is, and you will be joining me to talk to the report number 3 on page 25. Just some observations I'd like to make. This is very much about looking into the future. We can't make decisions today or set any direction, but these are the things that the new council or councils right around the country will be grappling with over the next 3 to 6 months. First one is the change proposed to the purpose of local government in the Systems Improvement Amendment Bill. Quite interesting comments, and we'll get some observations around the table. It's around prioritising core services, but what are core services? And we have a look, noted them there at the bottom of page 23, top of page 24. Network infrastructure, pretty easy. Public transport services, generally the domain of regional councils. Waste management is our civil defence, is following legislative requirements, and then the fairly lengthy clump of activities under Note E. The question I ask myself, and hopefully you're doing as well, is that what the community thinks are core services? What are the things that they expect us to do? We talk about needing to ensure communications with our communities are stepped up. And that's something that I've been talking about ever since I've been sitting in this chair, is to make sure that we put enough information into the hands of the public that they know when that rates bill turns up every 3 months, exactly what the rates are paying for. We've talked about changes coming out of Wellington to improve regulations to make things easier to happen. But we remind ourselves that those regulations are in place for a reason. They're in place to protect what we currently have. You don't want a 3-storey nightclub being built next door to you because of change in regulations and cars parked everywhere. The well-beings are proposed to be removed, not for the first time. But what are those well-being services that we as a council are providing to our community, and who's going to pick those up, particularly in the rural and provincial sector? And I've just noted my last paragraph, does the bill really enable local decision making, given some of the changes that are proposed out of central government? Cross over to the next report, and then I'll get you to talk a wee bit about some parts of the report in detail. If you have a look on page 26, we've talked about the cost of core services. And I wonder whether the core services and their cost are fully understood by the lawmakers. Because we have 92.1% of our rates are already going into core services. And arguably there's more. If I was doing this table, I'd probably add community boards into the statutory list as well, because that is the remuneration, and both directly and indirectly for those community boards. We need to address our collective position further at national level, and I would suggest that incoming councils right around the country would be looking to do that at rural and provincial for starters, and then further up the chain through local government New Zealand. Measurement of performance. How do we help the public understand what we do, why we do, and how well we do it? And that is a challenge that we can take on board as a sector and individually as councils. So those were the comments that I wanted to raise, and we'll come back and debate those shortly, but just to speak to the rest of the report.
Sure. Thanks, Chair. Through you, the Chair. Just a couple of additional comments in addition to the report. In terms of the 25-26 budget table we have set out there, that was emailed to you by the Deputy CE on 28th of July 2025. I want to note a couple of things that the Deputy CE also noted, which is that the Main Street upgrade could be a non-core service as well. It kind of depends on how that's classified. But at the same time, we didn't actually include in here the contribution made to the Otago Museums, which is actually legislated under the Otago Museum Trust Board Act. So it's not something that actually we are able to abrogate in terms of any duty. In terms of the actual core services and the system improvement bill, I wanted to note a couple of comments that have come out over the last week in terms of submissions made by other councils. One council noted that it is somewhat surprising that the core services, in fact, does not include a whole bunch of functions that government itself requires that councils do, including statutory functions. And then another council noted that the bill doesn't account for important council services such as social housing, safety initiatives, and does ask who will fill the gap if councils are mandated to withdraw from these areas. In addition, the draft Taituara submission, which would have been submitted yesterday, made a number of additional notes as well with the System Improvement Act, which I'm happy to go through if you would like. In terms of the rates capping, and I think that that's probably something that's on everyone's mind. So as noted here, the Minister for Local Government confirmed that the proposed model will be tabled before Cabinet before Christmas. There hasn't been exact kind of parameters as to what this rate capping might look like. I do want to note that in the general principles of the System Improvement Bill, it notes that they are examining the New South Wales model, the rates pegging model of New South Wales. I'm happy to go into detail on that as well if you would like. Otherwise, I think one of the things when we're looking at the definition of core services in the System Improvement Amendment Bill is to kind of really keep in mind that that definition is there to really likely service whatever amendment bill is tabled as part of the rates capping. And I think the other reforms here are fairly self-explanatory. I will note that in one of the councils that made a submission to this particular, to the system improvement bill, they noted that currently there are at least 32 legislative changes that affect local government and councils ongoing. Happy to take any questions through the chair.
Thank you very much. I'm interested in comments from councillors on the content of those papers, and particularly around core services, as to whether you think that is a complete list of those services, or whether indeed there are other things that we should be pressing for inclusion, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I thought it was a booklet graph actually, but the one thing I'd really like to see is that statutory, we have no way of avoiding that. So are we able to put the statutory in a separate portion of the core services? Because the people that won't pick out that statutory is we're legally obliged to do it. We can't get away with it. So I'd like to see that in there. And I also think that public convenience should be up there as well. Because the public, can you avoid, I just presumed you have to have public conveniences in your town and you use them when you're in other towns. Is there a legal requirement for public conveniences?
I think, I'll be challenged on this one, but I think there is, that you're right. It's public conveniences is something that you pay for when you're visiting another district, isn't it? Yeah.
And then the question I had on page 28, when it says about the UAGC, how there's going to be this application, which I presume that means we're just going to do away with the 30%. Are they replacing it with another figure? Or could you go 100%?
So in the bill itself, through Chair, section 63A, you'll see that that is the legislation as passed. And it basically notes that the cap that's currently in the Ratings Act will not apply for 5 years from the time of the transfer of the asset. It doesn't replace it with anything else, but you are still subject to all of the other requirements under the Ratings Act.
But if you take away that 30%, it opens up poll tax in effect, because you could go to 100%.
Well, I think, Sharon, I don't know whether you want to speak.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
But I also note that this needs to be read in context to whatever rates capping regime is introduced, because that may well put a limit as to how much you can increase rates and how it pegs according to your general income.
Yeah, but regardless of the rate cap,
Yeah.
the UAGC has always been a governor so that you can't load up one sector of the community. By taking that away, quite literally, you could load them up. Rate cap.
But that might
totally
be.
disregard, just put all the rate cap.
Through you, Mr Chair. The idea behind this, as I say it, is that once we take water out, we're at 46, 47%.
Yeah.
And so this buys us time over 5 years to get our house in order as such. It doesn't mean that you're going to put the UAGC up straight away. You're probably not, but just that your percentage is going to not be under 30%, because water's a big whack that doesn't get included in that.
In the perfect program.
Yeah, there would have to be some concurrent changes to the Rating Powers Act, but also significant reference to targeted rates as well and how they're used. Councillor McTamaney.
Yeah, a couple of questions, thanks, Mr Chair. But just in reply to the Mayor, that UAGC is probably going to have to, percentage is going to have to go up. You say you don't want to load up on one sector. If we don't, we're going to load up on the rural sector. We already pay a disproportionate share of rates now. When this is an argument that's been going on, someone's been having with through the Free Waters reform, is what happens to our rates when we remove the water. So at the moment, the UAGC would need to be about 40%.
Yeah, I get that. It's just where you went with it after that.
No, that's exactly what happens. If we don't put the UAGC out, that means we'll have to take more capital rates, which will impact on the rural rate base. We already pay a fair share of the capital rating value.
Yeah, and again, coming back to the targeted rate thing that I was talking about as well, we'll have some significant impact.
So there's a 5-year period of adjustment there as to how we figure out how to rate things.
I think there's also a good lesson, if you've got any spare time in the next few weeks, dive into your computers and have a look at the models in New South Wales and see how they work and what the issues are that councils are struggling with on an annual basis.
And the other thing I just wanted to ask was, if we're going to be lobbying or doing a submission, there's things in here, we talk about social housing, but if it's cost neutral, would that still be allowed to be a service of the council? You said that it could be questioned whether social housing is. But if it's cost neutral and we charge the full cost back to the renters, would that be acceptable?
That's a question we would have to ask in a submission.
Yeah.
And I think the answer would be different in an urban environment than it would be in a rural and provincial environment.
And following on from that, you talked about community boards.
Yep.
And also another one is West Otago Health, where the community has agreed to fund their health services over there with a targeted rate to the local community. If the local community, through a referendum or whatsoever, wishes to have a targeted rate in their area for what might be a non-core service, should they not be allowed to do it?
That's a question we don't have the answer to.
But it's perhaps something
one
that
that
could go in the submission if the community wishes. And that's where the community boards fit in too, because the community boards, well, as far as we know, those communities want to have a community board, so they pay those rates inside their area.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's another point that needs to be discussed in the submission. If the community wants something, should they have the right to have a referendum in the area? Or,
Oh, totally agree. Totally agree. Any other questions or observations?
One more little bit. You said that just New South Wales, where the PTA wanted to talk a wee bit about. You said you could mention it, or do we just go and look at it?
Just go and have a look at it at this stage. Yeah.
I can provide some quick comments on
Yep,
New
sure.
South Wales rates big. Just to Councillor McTammany as well, in terms of some of the things you've mentioned, I don't think the intention of the legislative change here is meant to say that you can't do core services. What the principle of the bill is meant to say is you have to prioritise it. The consequence of that is something that we don't really know, because I think it needs to be played out in terms of the final draft of the bill, but also in regards to whatever rates capping legislation is introduced. The New South Wales rates peg is, and I've got the kind of specific explanation here, is the maximum percentage amount by which a council may increase its general income for the year. In New South Wales, the rates peg does not apply to stormwater, waste collection, water and waste charges. What this effectively means is that councils can increase general income up to the rates peg, less than the rate peg, or not at all. If the council does not apply the full rate peg increase, being the rates cap, it would actually be able to catch up with the shortfall in general income over any one or more of the next 10 years. Now, it's very specific here as well that general income, while it consists entirely of rates income for a lot of local councils in New South Wales, it does not necessarily follow that that is true for all councils. And the rates peg applies to general income as a totality. It is not in New South Wales applicable to individual ratepayer rates. So it's not calculated on that basis.
That's the key in the Australian model. State government and federal government funds some significant services. So there's a difference between what we do in New Zealand and is funded locally versus those activities in Australia and what are funded at local level, state level and federal level. Councillor Herbert.
Look, I was just following on from a couple of comments in the email that Jill sent out a wee while ago with those categories. And it's already been talked about that I would have thought public conveniences, if you look at swimming pools, parks, reserves, community centres, it would be in core services. And likewise, community boards, if civics and statutory, then community boards should be statutory, I would have thought. And it's just categorisations and why that, is there a reason why they are where they are and can we change them?
I'm actually in your camp, and that was my first observation is why aren't they?
So that's my question is,
Yeah.
do we change them or are they
we
steadfast where they are? Or are they...
No, we can change those. Yes.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Originally, the government used public conveniences as an argument of one where they didn't want as much spent on that. But as has already been discussed, there is actually a requirement in the 1956 Health Act for us to provide public toilets, so potentially can be moved into the statutory requirement. In terms of the community board, the reason we put it there is there is an option not to have a community board every time we do our 6 yearly representation review. So if the community decided we didn't have community boards, then it wouldn't potentially be, that cost may not be there. So that was why initially we had it there. It's absolutely up to council to decide where you want to put them. On the same basis, potentially all of the cultural heritage to be moved into core services. If you look at the last definition of that, which would take into account the Otago Museum levy, which is the bulk of that cost. So yeah, happy to make changes. That was just an initial draft that was put forward.
At least we could get the previous government through the Tourism Infrastructure Fund, I think they called it. We're funding toilets all around the country. Mr. Mayor and Councillor Kennedy.
Now that that's been clarified, the Otago Museum is definitely we can't get out of this call.
I will just note, sorry, through Mr. Chair, that as of right now, the draft bill, the definition of core services doesn't include statutory functions. So that's why when our finance team prepared this, statutory costs were actually separated out from core services. It's a point that has been made in multiple submissions on the bill itself. But right now, it's not included in core services.
Through Chair, just interesting there reading all references to well-being. Now, isn't that sad? Because isn't that what our area and council is about, is the well-being of our communities, the biggest word. So it's going to be interesting to see that word chopped out of everything now. The other thing is the building reforms. Over time, I thought a lot of these were put in there so to stop the leaky home and all these other things that got through over time, and now we're wanting to speed up again and shut things on through. Is that not going to cause more issues? We're lucky we keep up.
Yeah, through you, Chair. So the building consent reforms currently that's been announced. There's only 2 changes that's really been announced. Look, the shift to proportional liability, you can look at it from 2 ways. So joint and several liability has worked, as you mentioned, Councillor Kennedy, in terms of leaky homes. It has also, I would say, joint and several liability has put a lot of pressure on councils across the country and insurers to pick up that tab where the fault has been at the builder level, the designer level. And that's because joint and several liability effectively means that each party to the particular function, to the action, bears the liability for the totality of the fault. So it doesn't matter if you are at fault, you still bear the total liability. Shifting to a proportional liability model, as I understand it, is going to make it so that council is effectively responsible for the actions that it takes. So if there's any faults, then we would be liable for that portion. I will note, though, to your point, that this is going to be really important, and certain other commentators have mentioned this, as to how it's drafted in legislation and what other requirements are put in. The joint and several liability framework is there to protect homeowners and ratepayers. One of the ways that people have discussed as to kind of carry on that protection is to mandate, for example, a larger insurance obligation to be held by builders, to be held by planners. So I think ultimately this, to be honest, will matter more to urban councils, to councils that have a high density and a high volume of building consents going through and a higher value of that. But it is certainly something I think that is, that the government has obviously signalled. And the only other one is the voluntary consolidation of BCA functions, though the definition of voluntary, as you would have seen with locals would have done well, is probably up for debate as to what that really means going forward.
I think the other thing, Councillor Kennedy, is we need to be mindful of the RMA reforms and the impact that they're going to have on the particular growth patterns of districts around the country. There is local decision making for a very good reason, and we want to make sure that we still have the ability to control that. And the other comment on page 24 of the report, we've noted now's the time to actually ask the community, what do you think core services really are? Because the first half doesn't, everybody will write down. But then think about some of the committee work, particularly that we do. Funding, making facilities available for communities. Now, they come at a cost, not deemed to be core services in the legislative context, but in the local context, very, very core service. Mr. Mayor.
I think we've got an obligation to actually define for ourselves what the core services and unavoidable costs are. We can play their game, or we can actually articulate to our public what our position is. And you know, if we didn't say the Otago Museum, the public toilets, the West Otago and Lawrence Community Board, these are our things that are, you know, so I think we've got to define it. They can go and define theirs as much as they want, but we should also be quite forceful on what our unavoidable costs are. Because it makes interesting reading, and if it's 6% or something, how the heck do we run this organisation, all the non-core on 6%?
So look, we said at the outset that this is a look into the future. I mean, we could sit here and chat about this all day, and we're not going to. I'm going to stop at this point now. But these are the conversations that this council and counterparts around the country are going to be having in the next 3 to 6 months. So the idea of these two reports being brought conjointly to today's meeting was just to sow the seeds, just to help the clarity of our thinking. So we have, go back to page 24, there's a recommendation that the R&A committee receives the chair's report. It's moved by Councillor Bolwheeler, seconded Councillor Ludeman. All in favour? Against? Carried. And page 25, that the R&A committee receives the government reforms update. Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Finch, all in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Sharon, route plan report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess just to note that this is the last work plan report before we get a new council and set up a new one for the next part of through to the end of the financial year. And also to note that some of the reports aren't in this agenda due to the timing of the annual report and the setting up of a new year and a new system and stuff like that. And a lot of those reports will be brought to you to the end of June as part of the annual report, which is coming on a meeting that's not on our work plan list that has been scheduled the morning of the 9th of October prior to council adopting the annual report.
And there's a council meeting the afternoon of the 9th,
Yes,
isn't
correct.
it? Yeah. So a double banger, they'll both be single item agendas. Right, questions of Sharon, there are none. Recommendation, Councillor Bolwheeler, Councillor Herbert, all in favour? Against? Carried. Page 31, Christina, would you prefer to sit with you sure?
Yes, thank you so much though. Oh, kia ora koutou, thank you. I opted for another short and sharp report as we reach the end of the term. And I wanted to reflect back on how not so long ago we had hundreds of issues that we needed to resolve. Some were deemed uncontrollable risks. And so for the team to resolve those, specifically the Three Waters team, they've done a really, really, really good job. But I don't really talk about those sort of things in here. We've got 3 issues that have been open for a wee while, but so only 3 left. The SCADA, the dosing pump, the electrical hazards. And we do have management plans in place for those, but we just haven't been able to resolve them yet, likely due to capacity at the moment, but we have done so much in the past and we continue to keep doing really good things. And those, again, management plans are in place for those 3 items. And yes, I'm happy to take any questions, and I've also got leaders in the room who can support with any questions as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Christina. Councillor Funge.
Thank you. The electrical hazard on page 33, the contractor failed to isolate connections and was electric shocked. Is he warranted? Is he got all this training that he made that mistake?
He was a trainee, but for us, we want to make all of those sites, the electrical cabinets, safe. So that's what we are focusing on. Going around all of our plants to make them safe. We understand what needs to be done, and that's our role at the moment. So a mistake was made, and we want to ensure going forward that it doesn't happen again. So doing our best to make those sites safe.
Thank you. So he wasn't badly injured, obviously?
He was shocked, yes. Not badly injured, no, he was
Badly,
shocked.
yes. Okay, thank you.
Mayor Cadogan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2/3 down page 33, Christina, safety and security. And while I think it's despicable that staff are once again being harassed by the public, we're also entering the election period where there's a heightened incidents for councillors. Has there been any steps put in place because it says there that safety and security protocols are in place and active and there's ongoing training? Has there any consideration been given to the ongoing training that will be needed for the new councillors? And is there any, it's probably too late now, but I'm not aware of any training protocols or the like for the heightened incidents that councillors will be enduring over the election period. Has it been given any thought?
Thank you. Our GNZ have actually released a guide for elected members, and we do offer our elected members first training. We call OPSEC training, so that will also be offered again.
Is that part of induction?
Yes.
Beauty.
And I can actually send out that our GNZ guide now and also provide that to the new elected members during the
I read it and I thought it was interesting, but it wasn't specific for us and it wasn't somewhere that a councillor could directly go to. It's just some reading.
Councillor Kennedy.
Through you, Chair. Christina, welfare facilities. Audits seem to cost a lot of money, and we're looking at going around all the facilities, or I mean, I understand, I know people need to go to the toilet, need to clean this and the rest of it, but there will be quite a cost if we start. So is our new facility that we've just built actually got it in there?
That's a good point. So if we are building new facilities, we should be putting toilets in, but in this case we haven't. And we have put portaloos at other sites, but not all. So what I'm saying here is it is a missed opportunity that we didn't put toilets in that facility. And there's a portaloo there at the moment.
And it's interesting, Councillor Kennedy, that aligns with our public toilets core services. And I think the answer clearly is yes, for those reasons that Christina just articulated.
Just Mr. Chairman, I mean, there were other considerations attached to this, like cost and things like that, in terms of that, because I recall my original view was when I did a tour of the sites and bits and pieces and talked to operators, aware also of the lack of facilities and that. And so there was a view held that this needed to improve, and then you see later on they start getting built into major projects, and then suddenly the cost spiral as a consequence of the additions and things. And there were decisions made to try and keep within budgets to not go there. And that's the trade-off. However, there has been some improvement. It may not be the ideal improvement, but there was improvement in terms of recognition of facilities being made available, and that's where portal is. So there is a trade-off balancing aspect to these things, and we always have to give consideration.
Thanks, Steve. Councillor Graham.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Question for Christina, and I looked for it, I couldn't find any specifics on it, but the lack or absence of child supervision, is that at the swimming pool?
Yes.
Right. So what do? You remove the children from the swimming pool?
Some of the times we're really lucky because the lifeguards know who the parents are, and sometimes they've called them up. And yeah, so there are options like that. But if anyone has any other views, then feel free to help.
Thank
you. Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, just the location compliance certificates. Assume all these sites are up to spec and quite safe. Correct? So we're looking for the paperwork to make sure that to say that it's okay. Is that where we're at? Is this, yeah, or is it a risk? I mean,
majority of the cases, yes, that's correct. We will just need to update our documentation and make sure that they are in place. But in some situations, we need to make some changes to the layout. But I'm confident at this stage we've been certified, and the reason why we aren't certified at the moment is capacity from our contractor to come to site. So we should obtain certification once we can get him here.
and just further, are there any legal ramifications if we don't get that done smartly? I see it's high priority.
If we don't have these certificates, then we're at risk of chlorine not being delivered to our sites, and we would be non-compliant. So that's why it is so important. But the relationship with our chlorine supplier is really important, and they can see that we are doing our best to get these audits completed. The problem is that those certifiers are so overwhelmed, and it's been difficult for them to come and cover and do the audits. So we're working with the auditor and we're working with the chlorine supplier, keeping them in the loop. So we don't end up in that situation where chlorine won't be delivered.
And through you, Mr. Chairman, it's correct, isn't it, Christina, that we did change certifiers too, didn't we? That did have an impact in terms of timing and things of getting these things done.
That's correct. We're on to our third certifier now, who has a little bit more capacity.
Thank you. Councillor Finch, Councillor Herbert and Mayor Cadogan.
Thank you. On the bottom of page 34, the health and safety policy that was overdue in 24 and the leadership and worker engagement that was overdue in 2019, and they're both high. The first one is ready for approval, but we're waiting on the restructure finalised for this policy to be finalised. How long away is that one and the leadership and worker one? Possibly a rough idea of how long they are going to be.
Well, as you can see, that the health and safety policy is ready for approval, and I just don't want to take it to the next step because then I'll have to change it again once the restructure has been completed. So I'm waiting for that, and though that's in its final stages, so we expect that to be completed by the first week of September. So that's that, and then I will get onto that leader and worker engagement procedure because our structure will be in place to make it make sense.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question, quick question, thank you, Christine, follows on from Councillor Payne. to do with the chlorine storage, does that just apply to our water treatment plants or does it also apply to swimming pools?
No, we're just talking about it affects any asset that has too much substance. So if there's heaps of chlorine at a site, then that's where it applies to.
So that's what I'm asking about. So swimming pools, they don't store enough to comply, to activate.
Yes, no, they don't.
So only water treatment plants.
Water treatment plants, well, we've got one wastewater treatment plant in Kai.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor?
Just thinking back, Christina, to what a big issue the previous contract Three Water made on health and safety. And I keep coming back to us time and time again with, this handrail isn't there, that ladder doesn't have a this and that. And this is actually the first time where I've ever cast my mind onto that since those days. Are any of the issues that we're faced with now the same ones that City Care asked us to do 5 or 6 years ago?
No, and that's what I was trying to articulate at the start. We've done such a good job. The team have done such a good job at resolving those hundreds of hazards that were identified, some being called uncontrollable. So we've done such a good job, and it's credit to the Three Waters team and everybody that helped. And we are on this, we are finding new things and we are working on them as we go. But it has taken us a bit longer than we would like to resolve these 3 issues.
Well done. Those were the ones that really exposed us, weren't they? So if it's none of that residual, we are working.
We are.
Christina, what I'll get you to do for the next report is give some more definitive fix times.
Yes, yeah.
So that, because I do have a concern that these 3 items have been outstanding for quite some time. And if there was a serious accident or fatality as a result of that, we may have trouble defending our position. So we really do need these addressed quickly. I've spoken to the CE about that this morning, and also the 2 outstanding policies on page 34 that date back 5 years and 6 years. I've also spoken about those this morning. Any other questions for Christina or general observations?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, just picking up on that, but for example, it would be more informative if, for the electrical one, we had the information that says, X% done already. So you're talking about a timing minutes to complete, but what would also be helpful would be to show the progress, because I think what Christina's explaining is that there's been progress on these matters. We just need to reflect in front of you what that means.
Thank you. Right, do we have a mover? Councillor Finch, Councillor Volwheeler, all in favour?
Aye.
Against? Thank you. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you.
Donna, welcome.
Netball.
Good morning, everybody. So, as you can see, we've got a number of our Category A projects that we're reporting on here. So what I can do is ask each of the project managers associated with each project to come up and answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you.
So that would be John, on my computer.
Mr. Chair, morning everyone.
Morning, John.
So, got the report in front of you, so happy to answer any questions you may have.
Councillor Kennedy.
3 you mentioned. John, gasket failures. Obviously, they got a done batch, and seems like all the gaskets failed at one stage there. That they with health and safety on the Greenfield, Lower Greenfield and Upper Greenfield gasket failures. So luckily no one was injured, but it's been rectified. Just obviously, yeah, I asked that question of Christina before, but there wasn't a toilet facility put into this new build.
No.
That's okay. I was going to ask about the other pipe, but I see that you're reading further, it is being, we're not paying for that. Just to query that later, if it be well and true that, I think it would be nice to add a site visit to the electors later when everything's all up and going. So, well done.
Thank you, and yeah, I agree with that suggestion. And in fact, extend that to some of the significant projects that are doing right around the district at the moment. Councillor McTominay, then Councillor Finch.
Yeah, as far as the toilet option, it would be quite appropriate that they could just drop them down to the Greenfield Tavern and get their lunch and maybe use it there. It's only a couple of 100 metres away, so probably a good solution. But I'm aware that commissioning's rolling at the moment, and is there a potential hiccup with getting permission from a landowner to flush the line running down to Lawrence? Because I'm told that they can't go any further unless they can get that water to be let go.
Well, that's been sorted. We've got permission from most of the landowners, through each site. So we've continued with flushing activities.
So how many flushing sites are there?
So each pump site where the reservoirs are.
The reservoir.
Up Lower Greenfield pump station where there's a reservoir there. There's the Up Greenfield reservoir site. And then Caneville, which is Balmoral 1. Breakneck tank reservoirs site. And Coco Shell. So that's, and also Balmoral 2. We managed to get in touch with all the landowners that are involved. That are affected, and got their consent.
It's just for my clarity, so the commissioning, you've got to get the chlorine dose right at the other end before you can fully commission the plant at the Lawrence end.
That's right. The line has to be chlorinated and dechlorinated to a certain limit before it goes on into the system.
Yeah, so you probably still can't, until that's, even though they're working on it, until that's definitely done, and the plant can't actually, you can't switch the scheme until that's
right.
fully done. So, so it's,
once we get the LCC as approved.
Yeah. So if there's a hold up, if there's a hiccup with the chlorine boosters and things, then that may cause a further delay in getting the scheme running.
That's correct.
So best case scenario, to follow up on that.
They're running it now, so hopefully it works first time.
Best case scenario, another couple of months.
For the commissioning to complete. I would say so, but we're aiming to, because we had intent to complete by end of August, end of this month, but due to some delays, unforeseen delays, that's why we extended it to hopefully end of September. But that will come true once we have the LCC in place and we supply the chemicals to the plant and we start commissioning the dosing pumps for chlorine and then all the different sites. And then we start chlorinating the system and dechlorinating it. And once we have that commissioned, so probably be a couple of months away.
Thank you, Councillor Finch. Another question,
So the fibre installation, you've obviously got the Wi-Fi all set up and rolling. Nobody's still got in contact with any of the farmers.
That's right.
And so will they? Because a neighbour asked me the other day, and I said, well, I might just see if I can find that out on Thursday. And I don't think it'd be very fast if they come in September and October. And I sort of said, well, I probably agree with you.
Yep. So the last couple of weeks, we had to prioritize contacting landowners where we needed to discharge the water with the flushing activities. And we now about to confirm the construction of the fibers, and then we'll focus on contacting the landowners, confirm the dates on that to be commenced, so then we'll contact the landowners on that.
So you're definitely going to do it?
The fiber, from the plant to Cane Road.
Yeah, because at that time of year, I can say I've got 20 fences they'll be going through. I think 9 different water troughs, about 4 other electric fence cables, a brand new 50 mil water line. So we're going to have to know, because I'm going to have to be able to make sure everything's fenced up right behind them. And that'll be the same for several neighbours.
Yep. Once we have that confirmed, the plan from the contractor on when it will start, then we'll start approaching the landowners.
Yeah.
So how many landowners are we talking about?
Haven't looked into that yet.
Approximately?
So 9 to 10.
Okay.
That's all right.
But your point is well made, and you made it also at our last meeting as well, for the same reasons. So.
Yeah, but just not the flashes fences.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Finch.
Thank you. On page 37, Stirling Water Treatment Plant, the new standards are expected to still require significant upgrades for continued discharge to water. Was that in the budget, and do we have an approximate price for that, please?
Sorry, that's operations.
Okay, that's fine. And then on page 39, point 2, there would be no additional cost to CDC for the remedial works. However, there would be additional costs for professional services if required, plus Cowley's connection installation costs due to the extended delay. Why would it cost more because there's been a delay? Is it because they're off-site and have to come back on?
That's correct.
And do you know roughly what that cost would be? Right.
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Now, is it feasible, like if there's going to be a major issue or something at the Lawrence end, is it feasible or even possible to isolate part of the line and supply the other schemes? Or does it have to be everything going at once? Or can we phase in, say, 2 of the schemes, or if we had to, rather than have to, if something happened that wasn't going to be completed till, you know?
No, for all ones.
Is that?
It's not quite right, this one.
Well, could be the reason. Anything out of the Waterhoona treatment plant?
Yeah, so, sorry, John can probably answer it, but Lawrence is the last thing that's going to be connected. Lawrence isn't on the boil water notice. It's got its own treatment plant that's independent. So we want the rest of the scheme up and running before we even consider connecting Lawrence. So that can wait until we've got it on the boil water notice off and all of that, because we don't want the boil water notice to go on to Lawrence. So that is a separate line that goes down to it, but everything off the Waterhoona plant, as Councillor McIntyre said, that's got to be all switched over at once. But Lawrence is the one thing that's not, well, there's actually 2 areas, because there's 2 people east as well. So that is, we don't want a boil water notice to go on to Lawrence. That will not be being connected until the boil water notice has been looked at for the rest of those other areas.
Okay.
And that's the bit that might be the last bit that's a couple of months away, because we've got to work through all of those, get the rest of that up and running, and make sure the boil water notice is lifted before it's connected.
Thanks, Jules. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. This has been a huge project, and I just always presume, we'll get to see the overall thing when we do a bus tour one day when it opens and what have you. But now it's getting tight. And you said September, but community board said October. Is it going to be this council that opens it or the next council? Because quite obviously there'll be a few of us that won't be on the trip in a few weeks' time, won't be? I would love to see it, what I'm asking. When is it, before or after the election?
That question's actually been answered by Simon, because they won't be going through those properties in September, October. So it's going to be.
That was my next question. Although I fully agree that you don't go into a path as land. More generally, if push came to shove, could someone get peeved off with this? Yeah, there's a bit of tension out there, don't want to pay one. Could they shut us off from being able to service the pipe, go to a pump? What right do we have to walk out onto a property? Sorry, don't care what anyone says, we're walking out, we're fixing. Can we do that now? Or is
Jules?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, there's a provision in the Local Government Act, I think it's section 181, that if there's public infrastructure, free waters infrastructure installed on private property, with the permission of the property owner at the time, we have the authority to enter that property and service and maintain and renew that infrastructure. We've got 2,500 kilometres of pipes that don't have easements, most of them, on private property, and that's the clause under the Local Government Act that gives us the right to continue to operate. And that is looking to be transferred across to the new water entities as well, because it just practically you can't have that situation with critical infrastructure.
Thanks, Jules. Councillor Makatamini?
Yeah, well, just one more thing, contrary to that, John, with that Wi-Fi on the different pump stations, they can actually turn it on.
Right.
And then put the fibre in and then reconnect it later. So,
Could commission, right?
so it could, once, that's correct, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions of John on this one?
Sorry, consequently, when is it? Before or after?
John, are you going to do the Milton projects?
Well, just through Mr. Chairman, I don't think it's fair to say that, I haven't seen a schedule yet. There's discussion here that Lawrence might be further down the track and others might be sooner. So it might be a staged approach. So there may be options around that. What we can certainly pick up from this is we are moving closer and closer to certainty on that. Very much so. If there's an opportunity that makes sense where it is staged and this council, can have an opportunity, then we'll certainly look to provide that opportunity, Your Worship. So it's just that we don't necessarily have that detail, but we can certainly look at how that will fit in. And if it does work out like that, we will certainly like to include this council in some recognition of the investment decisions that you've made as a result.
Just through you, Mr. Chairman, I think the other thing that's really clear is that the new system will start before the boil water notice is lifted, because we've got to flush all of that old water out of the system and people have got it in their tanks. So the new system will be up and running, and then there'll be a period of time before the boil water notice is lifted. And then once that's lifted, that's when Lawrence would be connected. So it is going to be staged, and it's not going to be we turn it on and then we instantly remove the boil water notice. It's going to take a period of time and testing and chlorine at the ends of the schemes and advising customers to clean tanks and us cleaning our own reservoirs as well. So it will be staged and the new system will be up and running, but it won't be the boil water notice gets lifted 2 days later. It's going to take a bit of time.
Thank you. I now ask councillors to turn to page 43 and deal with the two Milton projects.
Just a brief update on that. So we're currently waiting for the consultant to finalize all updates on the tender documentation before we upload everything on and advertise on public tender. Yes.
Sorry, for which project?
This is the Milton
The sewer.
Highway Pipeline Renewal Project. Milton State Highway 1.
So we're waiting on the consultant to.
Yep, we'll provide a review on the tender documentation that was provided, and it's currently with them to update all those documentations and drawings as well before we upload everything on GIDS for tender.
So if we go to page 46, which is the time frame, let's clarify for everybody where we are at the moment. I'm looking at line 18, the tender period starting next Monday for, what's that, about 7 days?
Yep.
Where are we going to meet the 1st of September date?
I believe so, and internal approval for procurement is circulated, so that should be received by tomorrow. So it's circulated this week, and once we receive the updates from the consultants this week as well, by tomorrow, then everything should be ready to be uploaded Monday
Okay.
this week.
And we've got construction phase going down the bottom. So it's October through April, but the heavy lifting is taking place through the holiday period, isn't it?
But, sorry, just to clarify though, that we have requirements with NZTA, particularly going on the state highway, that we have a close down period for all works on any road in England.
Yes, correct.
We have to adhere to. So we make sure that the site is safe and it's kind of, you know, when it's occurring in time. Pardon?
That's incorporated in the
It's in the
schedule.
plan.
Yep, thank you. Questions, comments, observations? No? Let's talk about the beautification report on page 48.
Good morning, everyone. I take that the report is read and happy to answer any questions.
There appear to be none. There is one. Councillor Finch.
On page 48, you obtained a high-level tentative cost for the water feature and brick wall, and you'll submit the detailed report to council. Is that for the next council meeting?
Through your chair, yes, we're planning to submit that on the council meeting 14th of September. And the reason we didn't include it here is because of it's commercially sensitive, so we're going to discuss it in another.
Thank you.
So similar question to the previous one from me about the time frame. I just can't quite pick it up in the papers, but we're likely to start when and finish when.
Through your chair, yes, we didn't put the milestones yet because we are having some changes in the design based on NZTA requirement, but we're planning to start by first week of September, that's next week.
Yep.
By end of next week. We already talked to the shop owners yesterday, on Tuesday, and we send out the communication plans, and so we're planning to start the first week of September and finish hopefully before Christmas. But then if we'll add the water feature, we might be looking into end of January.
Thank you. Councillor Finch.
So the feedback from all the commercial owners, how was that?
It was positive in general. We just give them a heads up that we're planning to start next week. Their main concern was, are we closing down any roads? We are not. We're keeping all the footpaths operational during the construction with some adjustments, of course.
Yes.
So far we didn't have any issues with them, but we will keep updating them every week.
Great, thank you.
No other questions on the Milton projects? Thank you. Mount Cooey, page 53.
Also me. Take the report to read and any questions?
So a question in respect to the status of the consent. Where is that at the moment?
Through your chair, the consent is still valid, and we until we decide if we're constructing the new cell or no, the current consent is still in place.
Okay. Councillor Finch, Councillor Kennedy.
So is there still one submitter yet to withdraw to be heard at a hearing? Have they not agreed to withdraw now?
I didn't include that section. I think possibly that issue is passed because we actually do have the consent now, so that's actually out of date, sorry.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kennedy.
Probably not to do with this paper, but just out of curiosity, there's a lot of times my phone pops up and there's wind warnings at Mount Cooey and it's shut down. Have we actually taken stats on how often this happens now? And what happens when you shut down like that? Workers go home?
Oh, I don't have those to hand,
No.
Mr. Chair, but we can provide that
Do
information.
we keep a note on how, I mean, whether, I know the weather keeps changing and, yeah, and it's obviously quite dangerous that they can't be on site, but what, do they just go and do something else for them?
I don't know that for sure, but I imagine that they find other work that can be done. That would be my assumption, but we can definitely find out. What sort of period would you be wanting to look at in terms of the closures?
No, it's just a curiosity thing, that's all. It's just that when it pops up quite, and it's been quite regularly lately, because obviously we have had a lot of strong players. Yeah, no, it's all good. Thank you.
Who else had a question? Councillor Graham.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just further to that, is the issue with the wind a health and safety one, or is it that rubbish gets blown around?
I believe it's probably both.
Both.
Thank you. Right, page 60, Milton Pool and Library. And there were some questions asked in public forum this morning, which I imagine you'll be addressing.
Yes, so apologies for not being here at that time. I was waiting for our section to come in. The guys quickly finding it quickly, someone wanting questions. So the two questions that were asked were, why are we not communicating to the public? Was one of them, or the public getting regular updates, I believe. And once we've actually got a contract signed and in place for physical construction, then of course we will be communicating very clearly and very regularly with the public. We're very aware that it's a very huge public interest.
You know, the key question was around the status of the project. The speaker observed the budget of 19.4. Where is that in terms of the project at the moment? My understanding is that you're evaluating and are in discussions with the tenderer. Is that correct?
Correct. So the budget is the budget. There's no movement on that. We're all aware the full budget for the entire project is $19.4 million. At the time of writing, we hadn't received the final detailed design costings. We have now received those. And Steve, Jules and myself have done a whole lot of due diligence and gone through line by line. And we have additional questions for the contractor. We're actually meeting with them on Monday to talk through to get full disclosures.
Thank you. That's the answer we're looking for. Cheers, Donna.
So, yes. And I shouldn't ask any question.
Away you go. You finish your report.
You might have my answer.
Questions.
So as I've just explained, we've received the full detailed design costings. We are in discussions with the contractor. We've received the contaminated soil consent from Otago Regional Council, which is fantastic. We're still waiting on CDC Planning Department to provide their consent approval for that. We've lodged our notice of requirement consent application with the CDC Planning, and we're also now doing the it is another contaminated soil consent application through ORC and CDC, but it's for when we're actually doing the physical construction and they're digging down below ground levels. So that's also, so all the consents have either been lodged, one has been approved and the others we're waiting on. But at this point in time, we're not aware of any red flags associated with that. Yeah, so if there's any other questions.
Councillor Makitamini, Councillor Finch, Mayor Cadogan.
Yeah, can I ask what levels, so say the tender come in over and above the budget, at what level of price increase would the decision come back to council?
Chair, my expectation is there's no increase. The budget is the budget. It's non-negotiable. It would have to be descoped or discussions made in that sense.
Yeah.
So what we're talking.
So through you, Mr. Chairman, if you've made a resolution and given the approval for the project subject to the budget, if it if I cannot sign a contract because it meets the budget, then that is it, and that gets reported back to council.
So $1 over.
$1 over.
Councillor Funge.
Thank you. The page 60 about the Toko training centre. Did we do our due diligence on these buildings? Did we get a building report? Because I see there's repairs to be done. And is that cost to us or to Toko training?
So
through you, Mr. Chairman, the expectation is that this is all part of the lease cost, and the intention was that it wasn't going to be a cost to council arising from.
And it's not part of the project cost either.
Mr. Mayor.
Donna, you're going through detailed costing now. You're saying that you, Steve and Jules have been looking at it. What's the time frame?
So I've already done all that. I've sort of made it a priority, and just to give you some understanding or visibility, when we received the costings in August 2023, I had those as a schedule of pricing line by line. Then when we received the 60% detailed design costings, I reconciled those with the variances against the 2023 prices. And now we've received the final one, and again, I've done a third wash up, I suppose, of reconciliation line by line. And I've pushed back very strongly with the contractor after discussions with Steve and Jules of any potential anomalies and questions that we have.
So I want to make it clear that this is the second time that the question has been asked by a member of the public. We've got a process that you follow and a process that we follow. And that takes precedence. And I have full faith in you to go about your work. And the public will be informed, as always, total transparency at the right time.
Thank you, Wish.
But the right time is after you get it and after we get it. It's pretty clear.
Well, so through you, Your Worship, through you, Mr. Chairman, for your worship, just these are reported to Risk Insurance and Council. You know, the last time the Risk and Assurance meeting it was described the 60%. And we advised then that we were going ahead and we needed to get the next level, which was the 90% view. Even though the agenda, at the time of writing the agenda, the report, we didn't have the 90% view figures, we're obviously reporting now that we have received the 90%. And that's public because it's being live streamed and everybody will see that. So that's the public information that we have received the 90%. We're doing the next step. And almost there in terms of a decision, one way or the other, and what we can or can't do. We made it very clear, $1 over councillors, it comes back to council. And we are meeting, we're on the last legs of that, and we're meeting the contractor early next week. And we are almost there for making a call one way or the other.
I think that's great, Stephen. And, you know, we are following a process. There is a transparency, and the confusion is not ours. The confusion that settles out in the public is not being created by what we're doing. It's not our confusion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor McAtamany, Councillor McCrosty.
Just a follow-up question. How are the Bruce Community Facilities Group going? Have you got an update on where they are with the fundraising?
Through you, Chair. So members of the Bruce Community Trust are actually part of our steering group. Is my first comment. So they meet with us regularly as we have our steering group meetings. And my understanding is that they have decided to put some of the fundraising sort of on hold with the bigger fundraising opportunities, particularly through the lottery grants, commissions and so on and so forth, until we can confirm that we have a contract that is ready to be signed.
Thank you. Councillor McCrosty.
Just wondering, Donna, the figures you're doing now, that will include all landscaping, everything. So once that 19.4 is done, there is no comeback for landscaping or anything else like we've had in the past.
Through you, Mr. Chair, so it's basic landscaping is included in this. like grass seeding and so on and so forth.
All car parks done?
Car parkers. So
Thank you.
beautification, we do have a contingency figure, and then the decisions will be made whether or not, which we will come to council if you want to use those funds for that.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Yes, just further comment, thank you, Mr Chair. It has been brought up at the executive meeting that in recent times with PCG meetings, the political awareness would have been greater because we would have been at those meetings that have been attended by with some of the meetings that have been attended by the swimming pool committee. And it is a frailty of the new system that, like right at the moment, there are meetings happening, that we would have had a presence at that we don't. And it does mean that right now we are not following in the steps that the organisation and the swimming group are taking. And I do think it needs to be addressed. I do think that there needs to be, it could be the local councillors or something, but we need to have councillor presence at those meetings.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
I'll turn around so you can see it, sorry, Mr Chair. Just a comment, going back to his worships, about the confusion with the communications around the pool. I think that might be a bit unfair because although Steve made the comment, we've got live streaming, but there has actually been no comms going out to the public. We've got a perfectly good comms network, and perhaps that should be communicated today because, as you're aware, there's campaigning going on and there's going to be a lot of questions. And that communication around that particular topic will be very vital for ratepayers to know. So I think I'd be in favour of comms actually making an announcement after today's meeting about the pool.
Thank you.
So just following on from that, that is precisely what I was meaning. We've got a process that we're following and adhering to. Today there's been another advancement. I'm quite sure that the media will announce that advancement. It goes to you, it comes to us, it goes to the public. And any of the confusion that was spoken of today, it's not our confusion.
And one thing I always say is we control our message.
Absolutely.
Communicate.
Councillor Graham.
Yeah, through you, Mr Chair, and on that confusion thing and on live streaming and that, can you just explain the 90%? It's a Calder Stewart term, isn't it? Or sorry, it's a contractor term. The 90%. It's not 90% of the cost, is it? Just so it doesn't get out there that the price that's been given is only 90% of the total cost. It's their terminology.
Through you, Mr Chair, correct. So in actual work, we've got the full costings now. We've got 100%. So what it was is that Calder Stewart were giving us a progress update as these subcontractors were providing costs for the line-by-line items. And then they were doing like a forecasting for the variance of outstanding prices that were coming in from their subcontractors. We've now got 100% of the pricing through Calder Stewart via their subcontractors. And that's what Steve, Jules and I are meeting with them early next week about.
Thank you.
Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Look, I'm really reassured that your expectations are that this will be 19.4 million or less. That's great. This is probably not even a question for here, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Has the committee got any room for value engineering on this project if the worst case scenario happens? I.e., can they cut and tuck and trim a little bit somewhere?
Through you, Chair. So that's what descoping is. That's what we consider descoping. So these are the discussions that Steve, Jules and I are having initially, as well as other aspects associated with the items within the project. There's all these lovely nice to haves and essential items. And so we'll start cutting our cloth accordingly.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, so just to explain though further, Mr Chairman, the trust or the Bruce group, community group, has been fully involved in those. It's part of the steering group side of things as we're working our way through the 60% certainty figures and then all the way through when Donna talks about line by line, there's also work associated with the group around, and with our library people and with our swimming pool people around how we are trying to get costs as low as possible and what is essential and what's not essential in that sense. So those conversations have all been had up to date as well. And now we're just looking at what the final costs are going to be relative to the budget. I'll just pick up one point that you said, Councillor. There are two things that can occur. So one of the things that you said was that I'm happy that we've explained that it's going to be no more than 19.4. No, so to be clear that it could be more than 19.4, in which case I can't sign anything and it comes back.
That's right.
So, but the other side of it is that it's below 19.4 or at 19.4, and I have the authority to sign the contract.
Great answer. Questions or observations?
For the comms, there's been so many people tell me that we're not being open enough and there's not enough information going out there. When it goes out, it has quite a bit, and I think that's how a lot of the public don't click and read onto it, because sometimes there's so much that they go, I'm not going to listen. I think sometimes we need clear, really obvious, bold, this is the update, something's happening, and please go here to read more and have it readily accessible for that. Because I've had so many people saying, we're not being transparent when all the agendas are online and things like that for them to be able to read pre the meeting. But what we sometimes put out, and this is no criticism on anyone, it's just what's been fed back to me. We need short, obvious things saying this is what's happening, and then to follow, go here, so that people will actually engage and go to look for it. Not saying that's the way it has to be done, that's just what's been fed back to me a lot of the time. And there's so many people saying that we're not putting stuff out there for them to see, when we actually have. We've put a lot of stuff out, but I think sometimes it's just not read because of however we put it out. Don't know what the answer is, but that's just what's been told to me.
Mr. Chairman, in answer to that, but we did have an intention, I actually asked for it, to put a section in the newspapers on our key projects, an update, but it's not as easy as you think to actually, I pulled it because in trying to assemble the information, you have to be so careful about exactly what you were saying and make sure it's 100% right.
I know.
When you are going out to the public. And we just couldn't pull all the varied things together in a way that I was confident had all the right information. But I do agree, and it is an intention of ours, once we get through this current phase of things at the moment. I think it is something that is valuable, that those key projects that we're talking about, we have a public update through the, we have a page, a whole notice board page, and we had intended to book that and put it in. But it's actually quite a mission to get the right information to the public, and we have to find a way to achieve that at the end of the day.
Thank you, I really appreciate it. It's just that it gets fed back so often, and
So through you, the chair, so I don't know if you can recall a few months back, we showed you our intended dashboard on projects and progress. So once our datascape system is fully implemented and up and running, our intention is to actually have it visible through our website as well, so that any project, regardless of the categorisation that we're working on, the phase that it's in, so whether it's in scoping, design, implementation, they will be fully visible to any member of the public at any time. I do take it on board. I mean, I've always thought until we've had a actual physical contract signed, behind the scenes we do a huge amount of work to get us to that point in time, as you're aware of, But until people are aware that we're about to literally put a spade in the ground, there's not a lot to communicate, but I do take that on board that perhaps in this instance we could have perhaps monthly updated.
That's awesome. Thank you very much.
Mayor Cadogan, and final question, councillor Simon.
Yeah, look, in defence of the staff and in defence of the media, I think we do a magnificent job, and it was highlighted today when the member of the public came to this meeting and demanded the figures were on page 60 that he could have read. So I don't think the media is going to be, our council media is going to be criticised because the information's going out there. How members of the public disseminate it is up to them, but to have it in the meeting and come and demand it, not even know that page 60 pretty much did it for you, what can you do?
It wasn't a criticism, honestly.
Councillor Simon?
Yeah, it just following on from the mayor, the communications team, they're trying to know when sometimes people just don't listen to what they're told or don't take in what they read. I seen a Facebook comment the other day where someone made the claim that the council spent $35 million on the hub. Now, and that was like, after all this time, all the communication that's gone out there of what the council actually put in, and the actual amount was a good $10 million over what the whole trust had spent. It was, but still, you get these crazy numbers out there. But, yeah, there's only so much you can do. I mean, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
We've spent the last half hour talking about what are some incredibly significant projects that we are investing in for the future of our community. Two things that come out. Number one, we talk about the comms, and the staff are on board, and I've heard that. And the second one, I do like the idea of a bus tour, certainly for the new council, just to have a drive around.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to say that in the media release that went out in December 24, it said the next stage is to commence the detailed design, including updating the cost estimates. So up until today, that hasn't been finalised. So I have not got anything else I can update until as of today.
You?
I do appreciate that.
And we're more than happy to try and Steve.
Rightio, let's go back to page 35 and the recommendation that the R&A committee receives capital projects. Moved councillor Kennedy, seconded councillor Graham. All in favour?
Aye.
Now we have the option of a 15-minute break or kicking on. 15-minute break starting now, reconvene at 11:50. Set to rock and roll. Everybody. Right, welcome back, everybody. Page 69, Linda. Protozoa report.
Happy to take the report as read. Point out obviously pretty good results. Lawrence with us look up with the UV system, but the distribution was compliant, so we didn't need to put well water notice on. And, so that was a good outcome. And obviously the other thing of note is the improvement at North Bruce. To be compliant for July, fully compliant from the changes we've done. So we are currently testing that network, and hopefully we'll have a decision next week. Sorry, everybody. Hopefully next week we'll be looking at lifting that boil water notice.
Questions of Linda on the protozoa report? Councillor Finch.
What's more a comment and a well done seeing all the green grass on that page. It's really wonderful, and that's up to a lot of things that have been done to change that. So very happy.
Councillor Volwiller.
Just a query actually on pages 70 and 72, just regarding the Lawrence result there. We've got we weren't compliant for the backhoe, but we were compliant for the protozoa UV treatment. How does that happen? It just baffles me that the sort of Lawrence was 98% compliant in July. The protozoa and 79% compliant. And it just mentions for the bacteriological one, and it just mentions there's UV non-compliance at the treatment plant. I would have thought that protozoa are killed in bacteria.
For you, Mr. Chair, I can't answer that question. I know that the UV situation was a result of operator error, and I know that we have a period of time that we can be out of spec. I think we breached it by 12 minutes. It was by the time it was identified and had resolved itself, it was too late to do a boil water notice anyway. But the results are what they are, and we report as they come from Europhase. So I can't explain. Sorry.
Thanks for that. And just regarding North Bruce, well done, congratulations there. And as we're pretty well through, nearly a whole month on now for August as well, so you're confident that we'll maintain that level of compliance?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're confident as we can be. Obviously, the production of the plant isn't at peak demand like it will be in summer. So if there is an issue in summer, we will still sacrifice quality for quantity, given it's a rules game. But until we get to that peak demand, we don't know whether we'll be able to hold it at that level. We still may have an aluminium advisory in place, even with the boil, until the plant settles. We've got a streaming current meter in there which will help with dosing and should regularise things.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Councillor McCrosty.
I'm clutching at straws, Linda, but you'll remember the promise you made a year ago. Do you think boxes will go from red to green when it's flushed or when it's fully compliant? When does the box turn over?
Through you, Mr. Chair, which scheme are you referring to?
A whole lot of them, you know, all the ones that I've crossed Do they go green when it's flushed and therefore it could be compliant? You know, as we go through, you said it'll be done in stages, or do we have to wait until the whole lot is done before these go green and consequently I'll never see them?
Through you,
Chair.
I'm hoping to see them before Christmas, but because it's a big network, I'm assuming you're talking about Greenfield.
Yeah.
Sorry, Balmoral to Peka. Because it's a big network, because we're testing in the distribution, there may be some areas of the distribution where the water turns over faster, the pipes are in better condition, where we may be able to lift the boil.
That's what I'm meaning, is
pipeline.
Yeah.
But I think to save confusion, and especially because we're going out every week with updates, we would expect to wait for everybody to be the green light. Because we can't risk someone thinking they're on a particular part of the network and they're not.
That's why you're 50 days behind.
Councillor McCrosty and then Councillor Graham.
Chair, going back to North Bruce, and you were talking about summer capacity, etc. That should have eased quite a bit with Wahola coming off those, won't it? Because we haven't been able to move those units on, so we should never reach the peaks that we have in the past. Would that be correct?
For you, Mr. Chair, I would say that would definitely have provided capacity, and the reservoir storage isn't online yet, but that will certainly also provide additional capacity.
Councillor Graham.
Through you, Mr. Chair. It's more of a comment, and it's probably for the next reporting when there's a lot more green. Can someone please send it to Michael Laws?
That's great.
I've got a few on that list.
And with that, Councillor Graham, you're happy to move the report?
Definitely.
Seconded by Councillor Payne. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Linda remains with us for the next report on page 77. Water operations 12-month update.
I'm going to take the report as read, and I'm expecting questions.
Who wants the prize for the first question? Nobody's asking questions. Do we have a mover?
Oh.
That normally promotes a question, doesn't it?
Yep.
Councillor Simon.
Okay, so the unbudgeted operating expenditure, just sort of question following that, can you just please explain a little bit more around that? Yeah, just focusing on not so much the employee costs and the finance costs, those easy to understand, but the other non-budgeted operating expenditure.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I might have to rely on Sharon for some of this, but one of the costs that was sitting in a different area of the budget, which has normally appeared on the fourth bullet point down about the year-to-date overhead costs for red-tick contractors. So those were allocated across the schemes and are now appearing in that operating expenditure line. And that was about 971k for the year.
It's just that it's 2.3 though. It's a number.
Yeah.
Okay, through you, Mr. Chair. Some other things that we've discovered in there, as Linda and I were looking at it, is consultancy cost was over by 881,000. That was one we discussed as part of the annual plan, that the budget had actually dropped to only 25,000 for Linda's area, and we had a lot of consultants, especially at the beginning of the year, but they're peering off now, aren't they? So that's like a big whack of that. Another one was the non-routine expenditure was well over, but it was identified quite early on, and as part of that, Linda's team and you guys made the decision not to do the planned maintenance. Is that right?
We restricted that.
Yeah. So the non-routine was over about 2.3 million, and the planned maintenance was 1 million that wasn't done, so that offset it, but it was still over by 1.2. The budget just wasn't high enough for all the things that went.
So the next question is, so were these adjustments made for our annual plan budget this year? So there's that you know, where are we sitting? Have we rated enough?
You're talking about the 25-26 year?
25-26, yeah. A lot of those costs are going to occur again this coming year, and have we budgeted and are we rating for that extra cost?
Budgets have been increased for the next year. Like this year we're looking at here was the first year we tried to increase them after some operation of water. And 25-26 is the second year. So yeah, they have been increased more to reflect year one and what we knew of year two. Whether it's right.
Because we're already borrowing
yes.
to offset some of that water raise. You know, I'm just concerned that we may be underrating.
Through you, Mr. Chair, so we haven't done that exercise yet, or I haven't done it, sorry, of looking at this year's budget against actuals for last year to see where there might be some early gaps. I know that for non-routine expenditure, we've budgeted an extra $1 million that you've approved, so that is going to help close that gap. But non-routine is that whole, we never know what's going to break. So depending what happens over the year, but we'll be tracking it and it'll be a lot closer than it was this year. And things, we had some chemical costs that were under budget. I think there was overtime and allowances that weren't budgeted for, that's in your staff costs. So there's a lot of things that hadn't been reflected, and I think we're better off this year. This year we've got $270K for consultants. We only had $25,000 for the whole year last year, so this will be about, hopefully with a new system as well, we'll get better visibility of where things are tracking.
Excellent, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Probably to both of you, maybe even you, Sharon, a hybrid of the next one and us. On the top of page 78, we've got the income, expenditure and the like. And we've got a variation of 7.3 million. So the 7.3 is over the top. We pay for that with debt, don't we? We spent 7.3 million more than what we thought. The only way we're going to get the money is to take it more debt. Is that how we do see on page 78?
Where's your 7.3?
The two variations of 2.799 and 4.557.
Oh, no, through you, the chair. The variation at the bottom, there's no, we've spent more on capital, but we haven't funded it yet. That's part of the annual report process. So we should fund that capital. So what we're looking,
That's the 4.5.
Yes, yes, indeed. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the 2.79 we would fund from debt?
That will be a decision as part of the annual report, working through where it falls, where it sits, how we.
Because this is the year that's finished, so 30th of June, finished. With 2.79, it's going to get paid for. Then we go over to the next one, and it's a hybrid one, but we're at 144.9 million debt, and yet we were programmed to be at 155. You know how we were quoting all the way through? So we've had a reduction. You think, oh, that's good. We haven't got as much debt as what we thought. But then the stuff's sitting here that we'll have to go over. Where are we actually? Are we
with debt?
Yeah. Are we going to get a whole lot of IOUs come tumbling through on that one day after that's going to stop this improved picture?
The debt you're looking at on page 82,
yeah.
At the bottom there's a borrowings dashboard, and as of the end of July, we owed 152 million. And that is debt that we've had to borrow in a treasury function to actually pay our bills. And then to the side of that, we have our internal debt that runs, and that's where we put it into buckets for water and stuff. So for anything we've already spent at the end of June, we won't be borrowing externally for it again. We've already done that where we needed to.
It's already included.
It's already included. So we'll just have to, what we have to do though is look and say, who should we be allocating that to? Is it a water scheme? Is it a hall? Is it a park?
Just to clarify, we spent less capital, so that's why it's lower than the LTP.
So we are actually coming on a wee bit. What if the media asks? Because I've actually been saying in recent times, announced that we've got $148 million of debt. What do I say is the debt right now?
Right now, it's
So you're on that
152,300,
So,
but at the end of June, we had 144, so.
Yeah. Other questions or comments? There are none. Who's a mover for the recommendation? Mayor Cadogan, and seconded by councillor Bolwheeler. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you, Linda. Right, page 81.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so Greg has prepared this report for us, and it's pretty basic. It's just a snapshot of our investments and our debt at this point, because we're in that funny time of the year where we're doing annual report and going into the new year. And it also includes the 2 reports from our advisors that weren't available last time to talk about what's happening in the borrowing world and what's happening in the investment world. And yes, other than that, I'll just take questions.
Thank you very much. Questions, observations, comments?
I'm doing too many, but I'll give another one. Quarter of a basis point this week, indication that there's going to be 0.5 coming before Christmas. Do we have a strategy that we would hold off borrowing until the inevitable drop? Or not?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we always, before we borrow any money externally, we go to our advisor and we say, this is what's coming up for us. We've got this much that we can get from there or that we could do from there. What is the best strategy to stay within the parameters of the policies that we've set? So we always ask that advice, and it might be that you borrow and roll it for 30 days. And then you reborrow again. It could be that you borrow for 90 days because they don't think anything's going to happen. Or it could be, this is really good. You borrow for 5 years and then we get a swap on the other side that mitigates the interest.
I'm not being smart. You make that.
Well, they make that call for us. They advise us, and then we take it to Steve and he signs.
So that's why we have external
That's not like
treasury support, because they're the experts.
I just thought with the 0.75 of the.
See, sometimes they might get you to borrow longer because they'll get you to get a swap, which is a weird thing that sits to the side. And if the interest rate goes above a certain amount, you get paid. But if it goes below, you might have to pay them. And it mitigates the interest on the borrowing you've got. But there's all these little things that these experts know about. That's why they do it.
Other questions? Councillor Martin?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the advisors are this Bancorp, is it?
Correct.
Right. Thank you.
For borrowing and Melville Jessup Weaver for our investment.
No other questions? In the absence of those, I have a mover, and that is councillor Graham, seconded councillor Herbert. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Right, go to page 104. We just have to briefly go into committee before we come back to finish the meeting. Those councillors who are not members are invited to stay